think the experience of the last 6 to 8 weeks shows that the various strikes that have taken place have had limited impact in terms of diminishing strikes. And the messages that are coming out, certainly from the US, seem to indicate that they recognise this is not going to be a short-term issue. So I think it is a situation that has got worse over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and there's no immediate sign of the situation improving.
Besides insurance fees, yeah, you mentioned insurance premiums increasing, I think, more than 200%. What other consequences could we be seeing? What consequences will be impacting the overall costs for companies? Could we potentially see challenges in fulfilling contracts?
Very much so, yes. Just to focus on one particular area of trade, the gas sector. In the gas sector, Europe very significantly depends upon liquefied natural gas coming from Qatar, and Asia has become increasingly dependent on liquefied natural gas coming from the USA. So you have vessels going both ways along the Suez Canal carrying liquefied natural gas. But the whole essence of the gas sector is that the shipping becomes, if you like, a virtual pipeline. This is very, very predictable. It is a highly choreographed trade where the economics of shipping and the time that voyages take is very carefully managed and very carefully planned. Just by way of example, if a liquefied natural gas carrier, rather than going up the Suez Canal from Qatar to Europe, if it has to go around the African route, that adds another 9 days, so 18 days plus 9 days. That may play havoc in terms of timing and the price, the cost of the voyage. There'll be increased fuel, increased cruise wages, some small saving in terms of Suez Canal fees. But what you see is very quickly a very significant impact upon the economics of the trade and timing and availability of shipping. And that's where we quickly get into legal questions. So if vessels are unavailable to receive cargoes because the voyages they're taking are taking a great deal longer, then you quickly get into a situation where parties may not be able to perform the obligations set out in their contracts, the obligations to take delivery, the obligations to have a vessel available to receive a cargo. And that's when we have to look at the provisions in contracts that manage this situation, known as force majeure provisions. So those are the areas of the contract that parties are going to have to focus on to mitigate the risks of finding themselves in breach of their contractual obligations.
And in cases like this where disruptions occur unexpectedly, how does the legal concept of force majeure come into play? And how might that affect contractual obligations?
Well, generally speaking, under English law or New York law, the force majeure clause really depends what the words on the page say. There's no legal doctrine of force majeure. There's no legal textbook you can go to tell you what the law is. It all depends upon what it says in the specific contract. And English law and New York law are two very common laws to cover the trade in gas or the trade in oil. So you have to look at what the clause says, firstly to see whether it covers the situation or not, and if it does, what the effects are. But commonly, what a force majeure clause will do is for a period of time, it will suspend the obligation to perform under the contract. But you have to be careful, because sometimes if the period of suspension goes beyond, let's say, 6 months or maybe 12 months, then there may be a right to terminate the contract. And that may not be in both parties' interests, and certainly not in one party's interests. So it really depends upon what the provisions of the force majeure clause say, but they do need to be given very close regard to, and particular attention paid in terms of giving notices under the force majeure clause. So that's the part of the contract the parties are going to need to focus on, and focus particularly hard and get legal advice, because each force majeure clause is different.